D.R.A.M.A TV 27 live here.
I'm Pastor Willie, Dixon, pastor of Wesley Union African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, a church that has existed for 199 years and will be celebrating our 200th anniversary next year on April 30th. And what you see is a display that we have for our children to inspire them that they have the ability to accomplish anything they put their hearts to. And you can take a look at it. These are some older pictures that one of our educators put out, and she does a conglomerate of pictures on a monthly basis, and it's all dealing with who we are as African Americans and what we can actually accomplish when we set our hearts and minds to it. So, this church is historically rich. We worked with the Underground Railroad. As a matter of fact, one of the members of our congregation and denomination was Harriet Tubman. She was the Black Moses, and working with the Underground Railroad. Also, Frederick Douglass was a member of the AME Zion Church, along with Sojourner Truth, and we were known as a Freedom Church, and take pride in that because initially the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s was kindled in many of our churches in Birmingham, and we were involved in the initial work of that. Wesley itself was, we started in a log cabin, and we built our first edifice on Tanner Street. And in Tanner Street, we became the first, the only place where free black slaves could have their children educated. As a matter of fact, in 1865, we hosted the first Civil Rights Convention to explain to newly released slaves their rights and the possibilities that they could have while serving out their freedom. And we have taken pride in keeping our focus on our people. We're in the neighborhoods in which we need to be. We've had many requests to move and from some of our parishioners, and as long as I'm pastor, I won't entertain it. We have to be where we're needed. So this is a definite need in this community, and I've served in every community that I've pastored that's been in a community like this. So I've grown to love it and understand it. I was raised in a community like this, and God had blessed us so that I had strong parents who insisted that we not go off the beaten path, and that has been a blessing for us. And our whole intent is to make sure that we provide opportunities for kids today that we had, that I had.
How important is it for you to give, our children the message of our history, of where our people have come, and what direction that we should head in?
Well, it's awfully important. We have a heritage, but for many years, our heritage has been hidden.
Wow.
And the problem is that many of us haven't taken the time to really know who we are. And that's one of the things that our church has done, and me as a pastor has insisted that we know our heritage, and we've done things to make sure that our kids could know that we have great strength and possibility in how we change the world. Wow. And it's a known fact that blacks built America.
Wow.
It's just no question.
Preach.
We were the ones who were able to sustain, even coming through the Middle Passage with all of the difficulties that we were given. And that's why many of us have a problem with high blood pressure, because we were forced to eat salt to sustain our existence. So that has become hereditary for many of us, but through it all, we were strong enough that we could carry the work and the load that without us being in America, it wouldn't have the strength that we have now.
That's very powerful, Pastor.
Yeah, and the thing that we have to realize is that our culture has changed. There was a time of excellence in our families. When I was raised, I couldn't bring a C home. It was just not possible in my dad's house. And when we were growing up, all of us were reared to know that we had no choice but to attend college. I was told since I could remember that you were going to college, and so were my brothers and sisters. We had no options. I've been blessed to work for some Fortune 500 companies, and in my jobs, I got to know many different cultures. And I learned that the Hindu culture in India and Indians from India raise their children, and at a very early age they start calling them doctor or engineer, or they call them whatever they feel their heart's desire should be, pharmacists, whatever it may be, astrophysicists. And those children grow up with that mindset that that's who they are. And now the anti-intellectual behavior that we're seeing is strange to our people.
Yeah.
This is strange.
Yes.
Nothing in the recesses of my heart will allow that to happen to my children.
Wow.
So when we got to Harrisburg, I'll tell you, when I was asked to come, I didn't know much about it. We had vacation here twice, and stayed in the Hilton both times, and went to Hershey Park and down to Stroudsburg and a few other places. So we really didn't know much about the city. So when my bishop asked me to consider it, we took a couple days and just searched, and we saw that the education system was lacking, and that they were last in the state at that time.
Yes.
So we prayed about what we could do with my wife being an educator. We in this church started a college fair in the basement where you were tonight. The first year we had 41 colleges and only 60 children. The next year we had 29 and only 5 children. So we decided, we took it to the superintendent, and she agreed. And for 4 straight years, we had it at Harrisburg High School. And then we brought every student from Harrisburg there. I know for a fact that 17 students were admitted on the spot who would not have gone to college. And the gratification in knowing that we were putting forth an effort to give our kids the opportunities that they had not had. And it was really demoralizing to me to know that we didn't have an avenue like that to bring these kinds of resources in to our community to help our kids get the advantages that I had. And I thank God for those who pushed me, and those who, especially my parents. They were rough and they were strong, but I see the benefit of it now.
Yes.
And we had a real benevolent family that my dad owned a business, and I didn't understand then why my dad did so much for other people who owe him money, but I do now. He unselfishly fed those people. He did all of those things, and when that's instilled in you in your life, you may not understand it in the beginning, but God has a way of bringing it to a reality for you. So that's a blessing to be able to serve people. And I'm the pastor here, but what does that mean? It really, when we look at that word, it renders shepherd, and there's a word for minister. It's the same word for deacon, diakonos, which means a slave or a servant.
Wow.
So we are servants. I'm not to be served. I'm here to serve.
That's
so
powerful.
I may be out changing tires. We do auto repair days for single parents and for the elderly. You may see me under there changing oil, and people say, "Pastor, you shouldn't be doing that." Why shouldn't I be? I'm a servant. Jesus said, "I didn't come to be served, but to serve."
That's right.
He said that the greatest among us If you desire to be great, let them become your servant. And if you desire to be the greatest among us, let him become your slave. So that's a powerful statement of servitude for me, that I need to serve more and more. And the higher the authority, the greater the service.
That's right.
It's not to be honored, but to serve.
All right, I want to thank you, man, for the powerful history lesson, man.
Yeah.
I truly wasn't aware of the history of
Now, I
this
can
church.
tell you this too. We own a cemetery in Pembroke, 7.5 acres that we bought that so that black people could have a decent place to be
laid
buried.
to rest.
As a matter of fact, the 2 cemeteries are closed. City of Harrisburg moved black cemeteries on 6th and Her, and the one by the railroad tracks, the railroad station rather. And we took those people and put them in our cemetery, and we put it because many of the headstones and all of those things were dislocated. We put them in what's called a potter's field, and we can't build there, but we have William Howard Day is buried in our cemetery. Horace Bennett, the guy who played when Morgan Freeman played the soldier in Glory, that was Horace Bennett. He's buried in our cemetery, along with Thomas Morris Chester, Ephraim Slaughter. It's a very historical cemetery, and there are 65 Civil War veterans buried in our cemetery. So Wesley has a rich heritage. We bought that property in 1817. It was incorporated in 1827, and the purpose was to, like I said before, to give our people a decent place that they could be buried. And we didn't have to worry about anybody moving it because we owned it. So it's almost full to capacity, and we have to maintain that, and the church does that at its own expense, which is very expensive. But God is blessed, and we were able to get those things done. So we're grateful for it.
All right, Pastor, again, I want to thank you. D.R.A.M.A. TV 27 live here.
All right.
Pastor Willie Dixon,
Yeah.
Luke BMG, Breaking the Chains.
All right.
One world.
It's one world in Christ. I have a Christian